I have no idea what to talk about in this video. I've already tried to film this a couple of times today, and each time it just goes off on tangents that seem wildly unconnected. But this time, I'm just going to keep recording and see what comes out of it. So more so than any other video, this is just going to be me ruminating, I think that's the right word, on the current situation, what I'm doing, what I want to do, and how I feel about the combination of those two things right now. I think the title of the video is probably going to be Directionless, because that is how I'm feeling. I feel completely directionless, and not because I don't know where I want to be, but because I have zero idea of how to get there when I consider the combination of factors that need to take place to get me there, which will hopefully make more sense by the time I finish rambling on. It's been a while since I released a video. I got a comment this week about that. Somebody, and I appreciate this with such a small viewership, especially. I do appreciate this. No, I appreciate this. I would appreciate this with a large viewership, which I don't think I'll ever reach, but that's a topic for another day. Saying that they missed the videos and that they got used to the idea that there was a video coming out every Monday. And that's true. While I was in Thailand, I got into a routine where I was making one video every single week. And the other thing that happened while I was in Thailand was I was going to the gym every other day without fail. Since coming back, the gym has become a once, maybe twice a week, 3 times a week, maybe thing, something I desperately have to get back on track. More importantly than anything else I'm going to discuss today, getting my gym routine back to going at least 3 times a week. No ifs, no buts about it, is the highest priority. The benefits that I started to feel from that are something that I want to continue with, especially taking through into later life. So everything else I'm going to discuss today is pinned quite heavily on this one thing that I probably won't mention much again, which is this going to the gym and some of the associated tasks that have also fallen by the wayside since I've been back in the UK, which is things like eating better, keeping a much more structured routine and things like that. But alongside not going to the gym, I haven't been making these videos. And that is because, and all of the things associated with making these videos, working on my own projects and developing my own ideas and all of those types of things. And that is a byproduct of exactly what I was worried about with going back to War Cradle full time, which is I'm not built for that. I realized that most people have their entire lives is spent working 9 to 5s, and I realized that a 9 to 5 at War Cradle is much more desirable than a 9 to 5 working in a factory or working in Asda or working in a picture framer. They all seem weird, but they're all jobs that I've done before I got my break into comics and stuff. But since getting the break, I haven't had to do this 9 to 5, and this was the problem that I had the last time I went and worked at War Cradle. 2 things come in. One, I don't know how to structure my life around that kind of a routine, and 2, it leaves me with no time left for the other things that I enjoy doing, right? Or the other things that I need to do. One of the things about my personal projects, this YouTube channel included, but the comic and the games and stuff like that, something that I've realized in the last couple of months, I would rather spend my time working on those projects and never seeing a penny for any of them than I would not working on them at all. Okay then, Neil, so why don't you work on them after work? Because the last thing I want to do after spending a day doing a whole bunch of creative stuff for somebody else is do it for myself. By the time I finish working, by the time I sit down, unwind a little bit and make some dinner, one, the amount of time this stuff takes me is running short after I've finished working. I am not a fast creative. I am a relatively fast comic artist, but not a super fast one, but relatively fast on the quicker end. But everything else creatively takes me a long time to do. Writing, drawing, coming up with game concepts, coming up with game rules, ideation, working on these YouTube videos, they all take me time. So I finish work, let's say 5:30, 6 o'clock, 7, depending what time I started. I make some dinner. It's then 8 o'clock. I, the last thing I want to do is go back to working on something creative. And so I just end up spending my time playing Minecraft at the moment, which is just my equivalent of scrolling TikTok. I've been looking at the problems of TikTok, social media recently. And in doing so, and in hearing some very smart people break it down in some very smart ways, I realized that me playing Minecraft in the way that I do is exactly the same as somebody scrolling TikTok. It's mindless, busy work for your hands with small dopamine hits along the way. Yep, that's right. And for me, the big difference with Minecraft and that one description of social media is that I get to be creative along the way because I have to build houses, don't have to, but I choose to build houses and castles and all of those things that I choose to do. I get the adventure in going into the caves and trying to get all of the resources that I need to be able to build these things and fighting the skeletons and the zombies and stuff like that. Here we go off on a tangent again, but just breaking down what Minecraft means to me and why I've become so addicted to it recently, for want of a better phrase, is that I, yeah, I get the resource management part, which is something I love about gaming. I get the adventure part, which is something I love about gaming. I get the exploration part, which is something I love about gaming, and I get to be creative because I get to build all of these big, wonderful structures and whatnot. And I get to problem solve by figuring out how I'm going to go about solving certain problems in Minecraft. But at the end of the day, that is my equivalent of social media, really. When you see the current breakdown and what they think, why they think people do social media, I was actually watching how can you wean yourself off of it. How can you break the addiction cycle? Not easily is the problem. And because when you break addiction cycles, you replace your addiction largely. You replace your addiction with a smaller addiction and slowly wean yourself off of it. Unfortunately, there's nothing quite like social media. For me, it's Minecraft, but for the majority of people, there's no thing where it's like, here's a, a more toned down version of social media. Doesn't exist. And so that makes it very, very hard for people to wean themselves off of it. But to get back to the point, by the time I finished work, I don't want to then sit and work on my own stuff. Um, and it's taking the complete joy out of being creative, either for War Cradle or it's not taking the joy out of being creative for myself because I'm not just being creative for myself at all. And one of the funny things that's come up in the stuff that I've been listening to and consuming, researching, I use that term very loosely, is what's important here. What is it that I'm after? I'm starting to feel like I would rather be broke and content. Happiness is a fool's errand, one thing I will never be, and I don't think many people will. I am a firm believer of only the foolish are happy. Uh, because don't get me wrong, because happiness and contentment are two different things. I think many people find contentment and call it happiness, right? Just to make that clear. But I think the pursuit of happiness is a fool's errand. So I'm really starting to feel like I'd rather be broke and content than slightly not broke and whatever it is that I'm feeling at the moment. Um, it feels like a monumental waste of life to spend all of my time being creative for somebody else. Just feels like a waste of time. I don't mind being creative for other people some of the time. I need to earn a living, right? That doesn't change. But I'm fortunate in the fact that I don't need the kind of money that a lot of people do need to make. I don't need to earn the amount of money that a lot of people do need to earn because I choose to live in a very different kind of way that doesn't require the same amount of income. Now that I'm full time, I don't necessarily need to be doing this, but I choose to do this because if I don't, if I go and live the normal life, I get a flat and I do all of these things, right? I- then I'm actually no better off than I was previously, right? If I go out, get a flat, start paying flat levels of gas, electric, internet fees, all of those things that you have to pay on top of having a flat and running the flat and upkeeping the flat, then I'm literally no better off than I was when I was just part time, living like this and working on my own stuff, which was making me frustratedly content. I find doing my own creative projects frustrating, but I find contentment in just doing them. Like I said, I would be happy to just work on Jules as and when I do, the comic that is, and to work on my own games as and when I do, and they never see the light of day. It seems pointless to do that because what I am making is commercial products, right? If you're making a comic, you are technically making a commercial product, and we all need to make money in this day and age. And so, not releasing it means I'm literally leaving money on the table. Um, and I write and draw these things for other people to consume and enjoy. So again, if I'm never releasing them, it would appear to be a pointless waste of time. But like I say, I find contentment in just making them. And if I'm just making them, I may as well be releasing them, being the point. I've mentioned on the channel before, the drive is never to be rich or famous or any of those things. You know, I don't, I, that's not why I do this stuff. I've realized, especially in having this YouTube channel and discussing some of these topics and being willing to release the things that I say on reflection into the world. Oh, into the world for other people to listen to me say it and either think I'm an insane lunatic or get something from it. But it has made me realize that creating these things is important to me in a way that I'd maybe not considered that it was. Um, Talking with friends about the creative process and the amount of time I've spent working on Jules and working on the games, I realize it was easy to say it held no weight to me previously because it put no pressure on making the things. But in now going full time at War Cradle and in having recent discussions and in now not working on this stuff, I realized that the creative process of making my own ideas and bringing them to some kind of life, that is important to me. And I'm not getting to do that right now, but I don't know what that means. When I went full time at War Cradle, part of the discussion that we had was I can't just flip flop around. I can't go full time and then be like, oh, I don't want to go full time, and then 6 months later be like, oh, but I need money, please take me back full time. I promised them that wouldn't be the case. But I also, in that discussion, said, look, if this doesn't work out for me, I don't want it to be the ultimatum that I set myself the last time I worked for War Cradle, which was like, I'm just quitting. I like working for them. That is an important point here. I enjoy working with them. I like everybody I work with, which is weird because I don't like many people in life. But I literally like every single person that I work with. I love going into the office and seeing everybody and chatting with everybody, and I enjoy the the things. I enjoy working on the things that they make. Now I have lots of problems with the way things unfold in that company. Problems that I have voiced to them very clearly and made it very clear. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying this, and if any of them at work saw it, they'd be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that Neil has issues with the way things go here." I definitely do, but that doesn't change the fact that I enjoy the work that I do for them. But it also doesn't change the fact that I am not enjoying not getting the chance to work on my own stuff, and the idea of working on my own stuff after I finish work is entirely unrealistic. Just is unrealistic. And what's most frustrating about that is if I do start to work on my own stuff, I can easily do 12 to 16 hours in a day working on it. I can easily get up in the morning, start work, and then work the entire day until I go to bed and it not feel like work, which is the important thing here. I can work on my own projects and just keep writing and drawing and getting frustrated and fighting with a story or fighting with a game rule or just backwards and forwards constantly trying to nail down what it is that I'm trying to achieve in my own project, and then realize that it's time that I should be winding down and going to bed. But it's the switching gears, right? It's the doing the work, stopping, having some food, winding down after the work. There's no way I'm going to go back and do my own stuff, whether that be make YouTube videos or whether that be draw jewels or whether that be work on rules for the game or work on artwork for that game. It's not the way it's going to pan out, but therefore I don't know what to do about that. And I also didn't get the chance to do this, right? Because I like to do this in a single sitting. I like to be able to record the video like I am and then sit down and edit the video and then release it. Well, that takes a chunk of time. It's lucky that I'm free today to be able to do that. I haven't got anything else to do today, so I'm able to sit down and then I'm going to edit this video and I'll release it. But normally there are other things to do, so on and so forth. And so finding the day where I get the chance to do this, and oddly enough, not releasing the videos. Hold on, a dry throat. Sorry. And oddly enough, not releasing the videos. Two things have happened. I miss making them. I do miss making them. I don't know why, but I do miss making them and releasing them and knowing that I have them out there. And two, I struggle with YouTube because I see a lot of channels in similar niches to my own, communities to my own, releasing videos that are terrible content, in my opinion, and seeing massive growth. I see this in the art community, especially in the art community, which is people with something genuine to offer see very little growth. People selling snake oil see massive growth. That's not true for all creators, right? There are people out there who are truly delivering snippets of good information and seeing massive growth, right? I say snippets because what they do is they deliver a small amount of information, because to get all of the information, you have to sign up for their course. I don't begrudge them that. That's their choice. That's what they want to do. That's totally fine. I personally wouldn't do that, but it's totally fine. But I see a lot of other channels just selling garbage. It's selling snake oil. And the reason those channels get so much traction is because they sell a promise that can never be delivered on, right? They sell an idea that art is quick and easy and an art career is a quick and easy build. And hey, I make $10,000 a month and you could too, right, in these 3 easy steps. It's just bullshit. It's just absolute snake oil. But everybody wants to think that there's a possibility they can do it, so they at least watch the video. And that's all that creator needs. And that's why they see the growth, because they watch the video, they feel inspired and feel like they can do it. So they click subscribe for more content like that. And they just get sold more snake oil. I'm not going to start calling out channels. I was going to, but I'm not going to do that. Everybody's going to know the kinds of channels that I'm talking about. But those channels will always continue to see growth in the same way that, hey, you can get 1 million subs in a week on YouTube if you follow these 7 simple steps. And don't forget to wait till the last one, because that's the most important one. Well, if that's the most important one, tell it to me first. Anyway, the problem is that YouTube has developed that problem, the Mr. Beast problem, right? Where so much content is just a different community's version of Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast is selling content to kids, right? So that he can sell shitty food products to kids. And the art community does the same, just in their own way. And I don't know about other communities, because you don't see many communities based around the making of games. In fact, I would argue that any community based around the making of games isn't actually selling snake oil. There's a few gaming channels that I can think of, people who are making zines and people who are making their own RPGs and cover the RPG topics and all of those things. They're a lot more upfront and forward about the reality of what they're doing on YouTube than it would appear the art community is. A whole bunch of cozy, fake garbage surrounding art at the moment on YouTube, and then everybody wonders why people are just jumping to AI, because art doesn't deliver in the way that these garbage YouTube channels are telling them, but AI does, right? Off topic. But the point is, with my YouTube channel, is I would love to give more art-based advice, but one, I'm really not that good, right? This is not a cry for please tell me I'm great. It's not. I'm good enough to work. I'm good enough to have had my career. I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I don't understand where my career came from. Even though I suffer with imposter syndrome, as do many of us, as does everybody, not just me, as does everybody. I watched a documentary about Mike Mignola the other day talking about the breakdown of Hellboy, and he suffers with it, and did suffer with it at what I would consider to be the best work he was doing. I can name you many other artists who are truly phenomenal who also all suffer from it. So there's nothing wrong with having imposter syndrome. But it's also good to be aware of where you are. And like I said, I'm completely aware of the fact that I'm good enough to have had the career that I've had. For sure, I know that. But I'm not good enough to be giving art advice when I'm not trained as a teacher. Because part of the other problem with YouTube is any old idiot can come up here, and there are definite techniques to teaching something well. I'm finding this at the moment. I'm helping some people at work learn how to digitally paint, something I can't even do myself. But the difference is I do understand how to learn it. And when I consume a tutorial, I am able to re-deliver that tutorial. They often say that teaching is just knowing 1% more than the person you're telling the thing to, right? So as long as I go and learn the subject the day before I try and tell it to somebody else, therefore I'm in a good enough position to teach it, especially when I do have a history of art, right? So anyway, the point being is I'm trying to teach these people at work how to digitally paint. And at the moment, I'm struggling with that because I talk fast, I waffle, as we know, and I struggle to explain and demonstrate clearly enough what it is that I'm trying to get across. Now, something in trying to teach these people how to do this work is I'm going to have to approach that with a little bit more care because I'm already realizing that being neglectful of the teaching part of it can have a detrimental effect. The things that I take for granted in art, somebody in the earlier stages of their career won't have a clue what I'm talking about, even though I completely take it for granted. I take perspective for granted. I just assume people understand. When I explain a 3 point perspective briefly, I expect people to understand it because I understand it. Or if I just glaze over it, or if I just glaze over the idea of how shadows work in the most basic way, if you don't know it, then you're just lost at that point, and everything you try and explain afterwards is lost there. And I wouldn't want this channel to be that. But something I discussed previously was the idea that maybe the channel in teaching could be a case of finding tutorials and then me working through them and then giving my thoughts on those tutorials, a bit more like an in-depth, I don't know what they call that kind of content where you watch somebody else's video and then just give your opinions on it. Some people do it well, some people are just lazy and sloppy. Reactionary content. um, but mine wouldn't be reactionary. It would just be, look, I'm actually doing this tutorial as well, this is what I got from it and this is what I think. I might do that because I'm doing that for these people at work. But the point I'm trying to make is I struggle with the channel because I don't know what I want it to be, because I'm not making my own stuff, and so it just ends up being more like a video journal. I get the idea that that's basically what a vlog is, kind of, but this is becoming more like, not becoming because I haven't made a video for months, but the channel at the moment feels more like a video journal, which again I don't have a problem with, but part of creating the channel was meant to be to build an audience of like-minded people that I could both help and that would maybe be interested in the things that I was making. I don't want it to sound like it's an entirely mercenary endeavor where I'm just trying to build a community of people that will give me money to read Jules or whatever. Because that isn't the case. I would want to give more value back than the support of that comic. One of the reasons I haven't released it on Patreon or haven't done any of those things is, even though I've done a chunk of the comic already, there's a chunk of the comic drawn and certainly a chunk of it written. The reason I haven't started releasing that is because I want, if people are going to support me on Patreon or a similar platform, I want to make sure they're getting value for money. Because if you're supporting me on Patreon and I'm, say, releasing a page a week, and let's say the Patreon tier is £3, well then, over the course of a month, you've given me £12 for 4 pages of a comic. That does not feel like good value for money. But as a friend of mine tried to explain, a friend of mine who supports multiple Patreons, he's like, it's not about that. He said, I'm not buying 1 page of a novel or 1 page of a comic for £3 a week. I'm helping support the person make a thing that I enjoy. I'm just of a different era, and I'm not used to that idea, right? I'm not used to that idea. I'm used to the idea that you pay X amount of money for a comic and you get 22 pages of it. You pay X amount of money for a book and you get the entire thing. I'm not used to the idea that somebody just gives you money to drip feed them content, but they're happy to give you the money because they want to see the thing you're making and they're happy to support you do it. That's just not a world that I came from, even though I realize that's the world we live in. So yeah, again, to bring it back around, it makes YouTube difficult for me because I don't really know what I'm doing with it, other than the fact that it is just a video journal at this point. And maybe that's enough. But I would like to carry on making more videos more consistently. Okay, so let's talk a bit. I don't know what I'm going to do about War Cradle. I haven't got a solution to that one yet. At the moment, I'm not going to drop out of it when I've literally only been back there 2 months. I'm not going to do that. On top of that, part of the problem with War Cradle is, and this is going to be a very brief touch on this subject, is I don't think they need me full time. I don't think that's what they need. I didn't understand the process before. I do understand the process now. Being full time at War Cradle is more like, for those of you who remember this, is more like an exclusive contract at Marvel or DC, like they were back in like the 90s and early thousands, which was when Marvel or DC put you on under an exclusive contract, they were basically giving you contracted freelance work. It basically guaranteed an amount of freelance work a month, right? Which is basically a paycheck, whether you do any work or not. That is what the exclusive contract was. There was a number of very famous stories, and I'm not going to start calling out names again, but there was a number of very famous stories where they put people on exclusive contracts, and then those people didn't work for 2 years, even though they paid them for those 2 years, because it meant, A, if they did want them to work on something, they were just sitting there waiting to go, and B, they weren't working for the competition. There's always something to do at War Cradle. There's always something for me to work on, but there's very rarely something they need me to work on in the moment. But what it means is I'm constantly doing work for them while I'm there, and when they do need me to do something, I'm ready to go on it, right? So I do get that. But again, that's not the way I have worked. I'm used to having something very concrete to do, and that's not the way this is panning out. But anyways, so I don't know what I'm going to do about War Cradle right now. For the time being, I'm not willing to just be there full time for 2 months and then be like, this isn't working out for me. I need to cut the hours in some way. I'm going to have to play it out for a little while. But in the meantime, I am going to start a Substack for Jules, at least for Jules. I don't know about the game yet, but for the comics, right? Now, Substack is something I'd not heard of until a couple of weeks ago. I met with my friend David, and he was explaining to me how Substack works. So I went away and looked at it, and I had heard of it because when I went away and looked at it, I had an account. But my memory of it when I got that account was it was basically a newsletter platform, a blogging newsletter platform, and I think I just kind of let it go by. Well, these days Substack is completely different, completely different. It's actually an extremely good platform, and for artists, writers, people who are making computer games, tabletop games, I would argue music and everything, it is a very good competitor to, at least from what I see on the surface, to the likes of Patreon. I think what I'm going to do is set up the Substack and start releasing the pages of Jules that are already done on a weekly basis, 1 page a week. I think amongst that, I'm going to try and release a panel from those pages every day, every other day on Instagram to try and build a small following there as well. And I think I'm going to start trying to get Jules released. At the moment, I've mentioned this before, but this continues. I still keep redrawing page 1 because I just cannot get it right. What I'm seeing in my head is not what's appearing on the page, even though what's appearing on the page for everybody that I've shown it to has said it totally captures what you've just described, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But because it doesn't look the way I can see it in my head, I keep reworking it. I think if I was to release it into the world, I'd stop reworking it. You know, if the comic went to print, I wouldn't worry about it. When I'm working on work for DC or whoever, I don't worry about it. I know there's a deadline. I get the work done. I work back to front when I work for somebody like DC. I get a minimum viable product, and then I work all the way up to the deadline, refining that to the point where I just have to let it go. And it, at that point, is the best I can possibly make it by the time of the deadline, rather than the other way, where I'm at the moment not working to a deadline. Therefore, I'm just reworking pages over and over again. So, okay, this has been like half an hour. By the time I edit, it's still going to be half an hour, but because I'm running over a little bit, half an hour already. So I'm going to wrap it up here. The idea is, well, yeah, so the idea is I'm going to start releasing jewels on Substack. I will talk about that in a lot more detail when I get that stuff sorted. But over the course of this week, that my Substack is something I'm going to get set up, ready to be able to release content via it. I'm going to try and make these YouTube videos more frequent again. I might put away Sundays or one of the weekend days just purely to get a video done every week, or at least every fortnight. But I would prefer if I can get it done every single week. What I'm going to do about, doing the gym, I'm just going to start doing it. I'm going to have to start. What I'm going to start doing with the gym is on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday, I'm going to go to the gym as the first thing I do in the day. And then I'll do my 8-hour shift. Sounds so bad when it just phrasing it like that makes it sound bad. It makes it sound like I'm just going and work in a pit of a factory or in a mine somewhere. But I know it's not that bad. But I'm going to go and do the gym in the morning, because I know I'll be able to work through the 8 hours, right? If I go to the gym and I don't finish at the gym until midday, I know that when I get home and start working on the walk rate work at midday, I'll work till 8 o'clock, because once I start my work, I'm much better at continuing it through. Whereas if I start working at 9 and finish at 6, then I'm not going to go to the gym by the time I've eaten and all those things. I know there's no way I'm going to try. Like, the difference before was my gym in Thailand was 15-minute walk from where I was staying. So I could get up in the morning, walk to the gym, be back by lunchtime, and do exactly what I just said. The truth is, the gym is a 15 to 30-minute drive away, depending on traffic, which is not that much different to the 15-minute walk that I used to do. But driving to the gym feels like a much bigger effort than walking there. But the point being here is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning and then work through into the evening. What that means for doing other stuff, I don't know right now, but it's like I said, I'm feeling directionless. I've just got to pick a direction and start going in it. I've just got to look at the situation and think, okay, how do I fix this? At the moment, maybe it's the fact that I get up and I work on life in the morning and then do midday to 8 o'clock for my walk rate at work, right? So, like I say, on a Monday I get up and I go to the gym. On a Tuesday I get up and I do some work on the caravans to try and get it finished. I don't care about finishing the caravan so far as making it feel like an IKEA showroom or something. I care about finishing the caravan, one, for the state of mind, one, just to finish it, and two, that if I ever want to get rid of it, when you get rid of a caravan like this, the park takes the caravan back, buys it off of you. The simple truth is, if I was to try and give it back to them like this, you get nothing for them anyway. I would get less than nothing for them. And it would be good to be living and working in an environment that's a little bit more functional than this one. Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up here. I don't really know what I have or haven't said here. I've just waffled a lot. The point here is to try and put another marker on the map and get a new start from this point and start working towards something. And I'm not even going to even though my brain has just switched to this comment, I'm not going to get started on this. But the truth is, I'm going to get started on trying to get my life in order, and then I'm going to have to go away again for 4 months. That's the downside of living like this. Choosing to live like this means that building the routine that most people build into their lives that they think is boring and they hate the grind and being stuck on the track, so to speak, that does have some huge benefits to it, like building a routine that this is just what I do on all of these days. But that's a topic for another day. For the time being, I'm just going to wrap this up. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Neil. Thanks for watching. Until the next video, we'll see. We'll see what I'm saying when I do the next video. All right. Cheers for watching. Bye.